Hello everyone, this is Sabita Sunkara and welcome back to our Enterprise Data Engineer interview series. So today the interview question is, what are slowly changing dimensions? Explain SCD type 1 and type 2 with production scenario. So this one is the most frequently asked question in SQL, ETL, Snowflake, Azure Data Factory, Databricks and data warehouse interviews. So many candidates simply memorize that type 1 overwrites data and type 2 preserves history. But the experienced interviews expect you to explain when to use each type, why business need them, and how they are implemented in enterprise projects. So let's understand this with a real banking production scenario. So let's begin with a real world banking example. Suppose we have a customer dimension table in our enterprise data warehouse. So initially customer ID 1001 lives in Hyderabad. After 1 month, the customer moves to Bangalore and updates the address in the banking application. Now the data engineering team has an important business decision. Should we overwrite Hyderabad with Bangalore, or should we preserve Hyderabad and insert a new record for Bangalore? So the answer depends on business requirements. If the business only wants the customer's latest address, for example, sending credit card statements or displaying the current customer profile, we only need the latest value. However, suppose the compliance team want to know where the customer lived last year, or suppose auditors ask where the customer was located when a loan was approved. So in that case, historical information becomes extremely important. So this is exactly why slowly changing dimensions exist. So here SCD provides a structured way to manage changes in dimension tables without losing important business information. So now let's understand where SCD fits inside an enterprise architecture. So everything starts from operational systems like core banking, CRM, ERP or web applications. Then the customer changes are first extracted into the staging area using CDC, timestamps or incremental loading. So inside the ETL layer, we compare the incoming data with the existing dimension table. So this comparison determines whether any attribute has changed, or business rules then decide whether the change should follow type 1 or type 2. So if business history is not required, we perform a type 1 update. If business history must be preserved, we perform a type 2 insert. So finally, the dimension table is updated and Power BI dashboards or reports and analytics consume the correct version of the data. So notice that SCD is not just a database concept. It's actually a business decision implemented through ETL. So now let's follow one customer record from start to finish. So the customer ID 1001 changes the city from Hyderabad to Bangalore. The banking application saves this change. Then CDC captures the update and sends to it the ETL pipeline. The ETL process compares the incoming record with the existing dimension table. So at this point, the SCD logic begins. So if the business has selected type 1, the existing city value is simply updated to Bangalore. The Hyderabad value disappears permanently. However, if the business has selected type 2, the ETL process does not overwrite the old record. Instead of that, it closes the previous record by updating the end date and current flag. Then it inserts a completely new row containing Bangalore. So the old Hyderabad record remains available for historical reporting while the Bangalore record becomes the active record. This is why type 2 supports audits, compliance, trend analysis and historical reporting. So in this section reflects real production experience. So implementing SCD correctly requires much more than writing an update statement. So the first best practice is using surrogate keys instead of business keys. So business keys may change, but surrogate keys remain stable. So next, always maintain effective date and end date columns. These allow us to determine exactly when a record became active and when it expired. So another important column is the current flag. This quickly identifies which record is currently active without checking dates. Then audit columns like create date, update date, source system and batch ID are equally important for troubleshooting. Then from a performance perspective, we create indexes on business keys and current flag because these columns are frequently searched. So large dimension tables may also be partitioned for faster performance. Then the data quality checks should verify duplicates, null values, invalid dates, and referential integrity before applying SCD logic. Some common mistakes I can see in the projects are overlapping effective date ranges, then multiple current flag values for the same business keys. Also, forgetting to close old records. Then using business keys instead of surrogate keys. So ignoring audit columns. So avoiding these mistakes makes the SCD implementation accurate, scalable and production ready. Now we are in interview section. So here if the interviewer asks like explain slowly changing dimensions and the difference between type 1 and type 2. So this is how we have to answer, that is SCD is a data warehousing technique used to manage changes in dimension tables over time. So the objective is to decide whether the previous value should be overwritten or preserved based on business requirements. Then the type 1 replaces the existing value with the new value. So no historical information is maintained here. It's commonly used for correcting errors or maintaining the latest operational data. Then the type 2 preserves complete history. So instead of updating the existing record, a new record is inserted while the previous record is marked as inactive using effective date and end date, also current flag. Then in enterprise projects, the choice between type 1 and type 2 depends entirely on business requirement. If only the current state is required, then type T is sufficient. If they need historical reporting and audits or regulatory compliance or trend analysis are required, then type 2 is the preferred approach. So during implementation, always use surrogate keys, maintain audit columns, validate incoming data and implement SCD logic inside the ETL pipeline to ensure data quality and scalability. So here are few practical tips from my production experience. So never implement type 2 unless the business actually needs historical data. Then always discuss reporting requirements before choosing the SCD type. Then maintain effective date, end date and current flag for every type 2 implementation. Then test multiple updates for the same customer to ensure history is preserved correctly. Then keep your SCD logic reusable so it can be applied across multiple dimension tables. So that brings us to the end of today's episode on slowly changing dimensions, type 1 versus type 2. Here the biggest takeaway point is type 1 is focused on the latest data by overwriting existing values, while type 2 preserves complete history by creating new records. The right choice always depends on business requirements. As usual, if you found this video helpful, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to press the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming Enterprise Data Engineer interview series. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next episode where we discuss data lake versus data warehouse versus lake house. Thank you.